Check, check, 1, 2. Check, check, 1, 2. Hello, hello. Can anybody hear me? Looks like there are 6 or 7 people in the chat. If any of you can just put a yes or a thumbs up or something, just let me know you can hear me. That'd be awesome. All right, thanks, Rick. What's going on, man?
Nothing. Tired.
Long time no talk. Yeah, I know it's late for you. Very sorry about that. I was just checking with everybody in the chat to make sure that they could hear me, and it looks like everything sounds good. Did you get your nap?
Unfortunately not, but I'll be okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. So I was just listening to LuncBurnArmy on a Twitter space. He was driving home. I know he had something to do with the family, and he stopped at McDonald's and grabbed dinner for the kids, and he was headed home. So I'm expecting him to be on in a couple minutes. In the meantime, I guess while we're waiting for him, we can just kind of get going. So for everybody who's in the chat, yesterday, Zaradar and I already did this. We had a conversation for, I don't even know how long, probably an hour and a half or so. And we did a little update and we talked about some other things, and it was awesome. And like an idiot, I don't know what I did, but I recorded it, but I don't know, it didn't save or whatever. So Zaradar was gracious enough to come back today and attempt to kind of recreate the whole thing with me, and talk about what we talked about yesterday. But we're also going to have LuncBurnArmy joining us, so we should be able to get a different perspective as well on some things. So yeah, thanks for coming back, man. I really appreciate it, particularly this late.
No problem, buddy.
All right, I'm gonna jump right in. Let me go back to where we were yesterday, and I'm gonna pull up the if I can find it. Give me 1 second. Believe it or not, I had this all set, and I don't know exactly where everything went. Let me see if I can do it like this. So if I do this and this, let me not share that. Cancel that. And we were right here. Oh, that's the backlog. Find it, I swear. That's the in progress. I think I can get there from here. You're just probably going to have to give me a hand. And here comes LuncBurnArmy. All right, so I am on the wrong thing, but I'm going to open this up and share this. And that way, so let me share screen.
I put the project link in the chat.
Oh, you did? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, so that probably make it easier. Let me just do it that way. Boom, boom. And there we go. Yep, awesome. That was quick. LBA, can you hear us yet?
I can. How are you guys?
Awesome.
Hey buddy.
We're good. So I was just listening to you in the space, and we know that you were driving home and getting McDonald's or whatever. So you must have rushed in the door and then jumped right on. So I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I saw Brian on there and I wanted to, more than anything, just have a social hello.
Yeah.
I hadn't been online with those guys in a long time and just wanted to say hi. And, it was nice just to chat for a few minutes.
Okay, awesome. I got a feeling you're going to be doing more talking than anybody else because it's very late for Tobias, and I can hear it in his voice. He doesn't have the same peppy head yesterday.
Yeah, no. Actually, it's just because I sprained my back in the dojo earlier in Kung Fu practice, so I feel a bit handicapped, but I'll be okay. I just, it sort of weighs on me right now. That's why I probably be more like to the point when I talk rather than be all over the place.
Oh, okay. All right. I got you. Yeah, you told me that you were doing that earlier. So hopefully you're feeling better soon. LBA. So what we did yesterday, and I guess we're just going to go through it again today, is Zaradar and I went through the backlog, and we went through the whole sprint, right? Everything that's going to go on in the next 2 weeks. And he pointed some things out, filled in some spots because, as you know, I was having trouble with the audio when we were actually having the meeting. And we filled in some stuff and it was awesome, but I'm going to have to recreate that because I did a really quick video yesterday on it, but I know I probably missed a bunch of stuff. So I don't know if you want me to kind of go through this and then you'll jump in, or if you want to just kind of take it and go through it and kind of let everybody know what these different things are and what's going on in this next 2 weeks.
I think we have to do your baseball analogy, so I really think you should go through it, Trev.
Oh, you want to go through the baseball analogy?
Yes.
I agree.
Can't cheat people out of that.
All right, I guess you liked it. What was that, LBA?
No, I think, you do a good job of explaining, and we can jump in and answer any questions and just add any clarifications. So
all right, sounds good.
Perfect.
And just so you know, you don't even have to mute your mic because when we're on Zoom, I don't know what it does, but it works out fine. It's not going to pick up anything background or echoes or anything like that. So that way you can just chat whenever you feel like it. All right. So for everyone who didn't have the benefit of being here when I did the kind of update myself for the last video, let me just go through this real quick. So some of this stuff, and what Zaradar's talking about with my baseball analogy is each one of these rows here, for me, for some reason, I tend to equate to like kind of a baseball game, right? And the backlog for me being the dugout. This is the people, or these are the things that are in the dugout waiting to kind of get in the game, right? And so we have two things that are in here right now: establish the automated testing framework of the new DH pulls and enable IBC for WASM. These things are in the sprint, LBA. Yes, they're going to be worked on. They just haven't, they're not being worked on right now, but they're going to be within this 2 weeks. Yes.
I can't see the backlog. I just see the ready and in progress.
I think it's because you haven't gone to the other project board yet, Trev. I don't know if it maybe froze or something like that.
Oh, okay. All right. Hold on. Give me a second then. Let me do this. And let me do that. And how about now?
Yeah, there we go.
Much better. Yeah.
All right, cool. So the two things that are in the backlog section, those are going to be worked on. We're just not working on them right now.
So when we add a new issue to the backlog, there's things that need specifications. So once they get the specifications, they go into the ready column. So using your baseball analogy, these are like players that have just shown up to the stadium and are walking into the dugout, and they need to get their equipment on for the game. So, we need to document these issues more, but yes, once that's done, they get added to the ready column. And then once, they are ready to proceed, we then take it and, based on priority, the next items are chosen.
All right, awesome. And I do see everybody in the chat. Hey, thank you everybody for being here. Guys, make sure that you smash that like button on the way in, so the whole algorithm thing. All right, and then we go to the ready column. And what we were talking about yesterday is, for me, these are the things that are on deck, right? So we have three things in the column right now: identify and resolve broken and outdated links, update Terra Classic development and validator documentation and develop on-ramp for the station. The first one, what can you tell me about the first? There's a couple of things I want to say about the second two, but what can you tell me about the first one?
Well, the first two are really they're really tied together. There's the classic docs that are there. They all need to be updated. So there's broken links, and there needs to be, it's not just validator documentation, it's also for developers. So all of the documentation needs to be updated, and Tobias and Vin they've really noted that the Cosmos documentation in general could be improved on. So that's something that we're looking to do, and we've got the resource to do it. So we're excited to get that done.
All right. And I mean, a lot of the documentation, like we were kind of talking about yesterday, is really handy for like new validators. Yeah.
Well, it's not, that's exactly it. So like when you're a new validator and you're trying to set up a validator node, right now, if you go through that documentation, you're going to have a hard time finding which is the correct snapshot version to use and where to download different resources and things like that. So it's a time-consuming process, and it can be frustrating for folks that are trying to do it. A few guys have done newer versions for validators, like updated documents. So it just really needs to be updated on the website. And the same goes for development documentation. Like, like our L1 team and there's a lot of experienced and very talented people, and even the most experienced and talented developers rely on source documentation, let alone a new person, right? Like Trev, let's say you decided that you wanted to, develop something, and you were learning to develop, or you were more of a junior or intermediate programmer and developer. Having really good documentation helps everybody out. And we want to help people that are the most advanced to the beginners, and ultimately we want people to learn and build high quality projects for the blockchain.
Awesome. So we're getting into educational stuff too, which is great. All right, the last thing on this list, and Matthew Perry actually is in the chat, and the only thing he wants to talk about is this next one, actually, I'm sure. This is develop on-ramp for Station Wallet, aka maybe the buy button. And there was a governance proposal, a text proposal that was put forth by Matt a while back, which actually passed. And this is something the community wanted, and something that the L1 task force decided that they're gonna bring in and work on, because we had been kind of ahead on some things, so decided to bring in some of the more sexy or more fun stuff. But a conversation we had yesterday informed me that this is something potentially that TFL is working on anyway.
That's correct. So what we're going to do is we're going to speak with them and see exactly what their approach is for this. And depending on that conversation and where they are with this item, will determine how we're going to do it. Like, basically what we were looking at doing is developing like an iframe that would allow multiple providers, that would allow us to be able to implement multiple on-ramp solutions that a user could select which one would be their favorite. But yeah, to that point, we have to do some coordination with them just to see what they're working on. And I think that that's going to be forthcoming. We'll have some answers on that. And yeah, that it's an interesting feature though, for sure.
Zaradar, we were talking yesterday about if this is something actually the L1 task force takes on, it's not that difficult, maybe a thing to get done.
No, I mean, it's not a significant amount of work. I think my main concern is implementing a generic solution so we can allow multiple providers like Coinin and whoever wants to offer plugins to come and do so. And I think we can do it in like maybe a week or two in terms of implementation.
All right. But what we want to do right now is these guys are going to have their conversations with TFL about this and find out maybe what their timeline is or exactly how they're going to go about implementing it. And maybe if it's something that they don't really have on the front burner, maybe on the back burner, we'll figure it out. But if they're not going to be doing it for a while, maybe the L1 task force will just go ahead and get it done. But if it's something that they're going to be doing pretty soon anyway, then, we'll just kind of go with kind of what they do. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's what makes sense. I mean, we're already right now working on the Terra station component to integrate the exemption list proposals for voting and stuff like that. So we're already kind of like working in that part of the code base, I guess you could say. So it's not going to take a lot of effort for us because we have, good lines of communications around pushing pull requests and so on. So again, I think this is one of the things that we're going to be probably looking at, during March, because right now our focus is very much on trying to ensure the release of the 110 client, which is not only just, releasing the Terra D client itself, but also sort of, facilitating the upgrade process and communicating the halt thing and also updating all of the front end assets and so on. So it's, a lot of moving parts, and that's why it's going to be sitting in the ready column at least until the beginning of next month.
Okay. All right. That's fair enough. But Matt, to your concern, it sounds like barring, some unforeseen whatever, that this is either by TFL or by the L1TF, that this is something that's probably going to get done. So kudos to you for putting that proposal up. Okay, the in progress column, or what I like to call at bat. There are a few things here. And feature update WASM to 1.1.0, and we're kind of moving on this. This is up for vote, yeah?
Yeah. So we're seeking basically approval to upgrade to 1.1.0, and then pending the current status of the 1.2.0 release candidate, we might bump it to 1.2.0. But this is a necessary upgrade for us to ensure that we can sort of support the version of Cosmos Wasm that we want layer 2 dApps to target once we're ready to migrate them, which will probably happen, sometime at the beginning of April.
Okay, all right. And this encompasses the 3 proposals that were up. Honestly, I haven't checked it. Do they still have a couple hours, or did they already pass?
I think they all passed last I checked.
LBA, is it? Can you confirm that? I mean, I can just go over and look.
I'll take a quick look. I mean, they were passing by. It looked like a landslide when I last checked, and it only had a few hours left. So,
right.
I would imagine that it hasn't changed significantly since.
They must be in the past. IO, because I can't find them in the voting. So
yeah, it looks like.
Yep. So we're good. All right. So
yeah, they all passed. They all passed.
Yep. So that encompasses all 3 of those. The 2 that had to do with the whitelist and the wallet for Binance, and a little clarification on that from either one of you, because I was watching a video from another YouTuber earlier today who was, I think, seemed to be under the assumption that there are now 2 going to be two separate burn wallets. There's going to be a regular burn wallet, the old burn wallet, and then a brand new, totally new burn wallet that Binance wanted. And but there was some agreement that was actually reached that made that maybe a little different. So does anybody want to explain exactly how that's going to go?
Yeah, I can explain that. So in fairness to anybody who it was a very recent decision. So just to give the background on this, if we back up a second, what happened, Binance had the concern that they don't want people to be able to remint. And so they actually requested a separate burn wallet. And we put up the proposal for a separate burn wallet, and we actually got fairly far along the process of solutioning that. What ended up happening was we found a more elegant, streamlined solution where we didn't really need to write 300 lines of code. We just found a way to remove the ability to remint with a couple lines of code. And we went back to Binance with the more elegant solution, and they agreed to it. So in fairness to any other YouTubers, we really posted that in the most recent update and proposal. So it's very, very new information that just came out. So we were going down that road of needing another burn wallet. And to be honest, had Binance come and said, sorry guys, we still, your proposed solution, we're not going to agree to it, I probably would have been saying, hey, Tobias, guys, let's get going on that 300 lines of code. So fortunately, that didn't have to happen.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think from an implementation perspective, the least amount of code is always the best solution. And it would have been messy if we had ended up with two burn wallets in the treasury module. So from also just a pure maintaining the platform perspective, I'm personally happy that we didn't.
Yeah, I think it was a great win-win all around. Binance got what they were looking for, which in fair, they have an excellent point, right? They're burning their own funds and helping our community. They don't want it to be a simple parameter vote to change and remint. And I think that that's a very valid thing. And like Tobias said, we don't want multiple burn wallets in the treasury module. So I think it was just a win-win across a win-win-win. It's a win for Binance, it's a win for us, and it's a win for the community.
Right. All right. So thank you very much for clarifying that for everyone. What's going on, Ivan? I see you in there. And yeah, it was very, very new. And so, the video that I did see earlier, I didn't mean to say this person's trying to mislead anybody, but I just know that was still the understanding out there that there was going to be a separate wallet, and that's kind of the way that the wording was on the proposal. So, but that has changed. Everybody's happy, and so on the 28th, right? Assuming this passes, 1.1.0 passes, on the 28th, there will be a chain halt. Yes?
Yep.
Right.
It's a significant improvement to the upgrade process. And basically, it's a more elegant way of upgrading and streamlined. So basically, the software upgrade handlers will pause the chain, gives validators the everybody updates at that point. It's a scheduled upgrade, and then everybody restarts, and the upgrade happens at the specified time. So there's even another enhancement that Tobias, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about the Cosmovisor stuff that we might be looking to do at some point.
Well, I mean, I've been talking about this for a while in various places. So overall, For a period of time, we were using chain guards, which amount to soft forks. And while they are very easy to implement into the network because they don't require a halt and a lot of coordination, they do kind of, pollute the code over time because the complexity grows. So with the ability to do the upgrade proposals, and we have now the ability to sort of do like something akin to a hard fork when we do the upgrade. So we halt the network, we produce a new client, and then people sort of take that upgrade, and then everybody, starts up and everything is back to normal. And there's then this extra thing within the Cosmos called the Cosmovisor that I've sort of also been looking at for a number of months now. It's still in a very sort of young stage in terms of development, but it has the capacity to potentially allow us to automatically release these upgrades to the validators using an actual vote, which would then pretty much automate the upgrade process itself. And that would obviously make the upgrade very painless. And it would be much more orderly in terms of the transitions between the different clients due to how the upgrade handlers work. So overall, we're happy and excited about getting this done. And obviously, it's going to be quite, how can I say, we're going to be up all night around the point when the block height triggers and so on, because it's new for us also. So we want to see how the network behaves, if there's any, problems and so on and so forth, so we can, learn from that.
Once that block height hits, the validators need to get this update done kind of pronto, yeah, because the next day, I guess, is the schedule for, do I have that timeline right? The next day is a scheduled burn for Binance?
Yeah, I think that's correct. Something like that. They want to burn on the 1st, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, there's only 28 days in this month. So if that happens on the 28th, that means we need to get 2/3 at least of the validators, right, updated and get the chain back to, running. So that Binance can go ahead with their burn. So time is going to be crucial on this one. And, I put out a video about this previously, and I think that everybody should, continue to push the word and make sure that all validators, and they should by now, they should be aware, but make sure everybody is aware and on top of their game and getting this done, because it's maybe a shorter window of time than maybe we would, I don't know, prefer.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a very narrow window, and I do foresee some disruption, but primarily in the layer 2 components, and more specifically the mobile apps, because I'm not sure we're going to be able to push updates to the mobile clients in time, which means that they won't be able to use the new proposal types. They will still be functional. They just can't use the new exemption list proposals. Those will most likely only be available to Terra Station and the desktop client.
Okay. But before I continue on with this list, I want to address something, and we may as well get this out of the way right up front. I want to address something in the chat. And there are questions regarding Markimus, your question, and it's not that I don't want to answer that question and nobody wants to answer that question, but we kind of don't want to answer that question. Reason being, there was a big discussion that was had yesterday regarding some of these things that are going on with the SEC, with Do Kwon, with all that stuff. But the fact of the matter is, neither me or Zaradar or LuncBurnArmy, none of us are legal advisors. We're not legal professionals. We don't work in that field at all. And so it gets a little touchy answering that question or even attempting to answer that question when the fact of the matter is we're not experts in that field. So we probably are looking to clarify some things legally before we really talk on that kind of stuff. Is that fair to say?
I can't read his question, but if he's talking about a repeg, then I would say yes.
So does it have to do with the legal matter with the SEC? And
all right.
maybe
So
just,
the
maybe just
question.
read the question and I
Sure.
can.
Yeah. I didn't know if you guys were following the chat or not. I'm sorry. It says just a question. How smart is it to put so much eggs into the TFL's basket, as I hear you are doing, when SEC is going after them? So, it does have to do with that.
So, I mean,
Okay.
so I can speak to that a little bit. We're definitely going to get some advice with respect to that matter. Secondly, some of the updated documentation and things like that are being looked at. So all of that is being looked at and reviewed. Similar to what you said, Trev, I think it's the best answer is that we're looking at it and we're aware of it, and we will at a point in the near future have more to say on that matter. But right now, I would say that it's both premature for us to say without having the, before that's been finalized, or before we've received the right advice. And, to your point, we are not legal experts, and, but the question is a valid one, about.
I was actually asked a similar question earlier by Natty on Twitter, I think it was, right? And the thing is this, that we cannot be held liable for working with software that is published under an Apache 3 license, right? So we are legally firewalled in that department. And we can't really be held liable for using public infrastructure like the TFL endpoints because, well, they're public. So all in all, what we're just trying to balance here is the advice that Ed and I received from a group of lawyers. I think it was like maybe November last year or something like that, which basically stated that we should try to be very hands-off with the whole Do Kwon situation and TFL in general, and focus mainly on the software and on sort of maintaining the blockchain, and then probably waiting with any big moves in the USDC department until there was some sort of regulatory clarity from the US Senate. So those were basically the advice we got from one of the larger civil law firms in California. So, I've been trying to heed that as much as possible, and then let the community know that, maybe we should hold off on repegging USDC to $1 until things have sort of calmed down, because right now, doing anything, beyond what we're currently doing is definitely not a good idea with regards to the point of putting too many eggs in TFL's basket. But on the other hand, we don't really have viable alternatives to the TFL dependencies we have right now. We are working on different alternatives. Ed are negotiating with different parties. We're looking at how we can manage the platform layer. But all of that is going to take time and effort and resources. So most likely these concerns will materialize in the Q2 scope as activities that we will work on.
Okay. Dominium says that the Binance burn is on the 2nd of March. I heard that, I thought that it was on the 1st. I hadn't heard the 2nd. Anybody, and either of you know for sure? Or?
No, he's probably right. I think he spends more time keeping track of this than I do.
Yeah, maybe. All right.
There's most likely a press release on Binance website somewhere stating it. So it's probably just finding that one.
Okay. All right. Awesome. If that's the truth, then thank you for clarifying that. I've been hearing the 1st for the longest time. Ivan, I see that question, and that's definitely something we're going to get into, and I'll read the question. But just not to get too derailed, I want to kind of get through the backlog here and then absolutely get into that kind of stuff. But so we all remember to kind of get back to this. Ivan wanted to know, what is the projection for V2.0? Also, any projection on Q2 costs for the L1? So we'll chat about that stuff in a minute. But I just want to get back and try to get through the rest of this stuff here. So clean up GitHub branches. We talked about this yesterday, and that this is an ongoing and arduous process.
I mean,
that's why.
we're actually coming to completion to that, and to
Yep.
sort of explain that process and also partially try to answer Ivan's question.
Okay.
We have had to clean up all of the different repositories to sort of establish a new baseline, because we've had a lot of different people, from myself to Jacob to other TR people, sort of working around the code, and we needed to re-establish a new baseline. So while we've been producing releases, Einonman and myself have been also silently working in aligning our Tendermint branches and our Cosmos branches and our Oracle feeder branches and so on, so that we now are close to a point where our main branch is the current, what we call source of truth. And that allows us to sort of, how can you say, get closer to the V2.0 upgrade, because the V2.0 upgrade basically needs all of those baseline dependencies to be realigned, which have been more or less completed now. So by the end of the sprint, it's my assumption that we will be able to close this issue, and that means that we have all the dependencies in place for V2, and then we just have to put Humpty Dumpty back together, and we should be good to go.
Okay. All right. Beautiful. All right. I see that there's like 67 people or something like that in the chat, and there's like 21 likes. Guys, if you don't mind, so you don't forget, just if you could hit the like button for me, that'd be awesome, because that actually pulls more people in. Okay. So thank you for covering that. The next, just going down, build, upgrade, testing for the WASM. And we talked about how that, actually the actual coding it represents kind of a small part of the process, and there's a lot of testing that happens. So this is kind of just part of that.
So we want to sort of work towards what we call continuous delivery within software development, because one of the things that I've learned about blockchain development since I got into the Cosmos is that you spend quite a significant amount of time on the actual test component. And we're trying to see if we can automate as much as this. So we can basically, just offload it to the point that when we make a pull request, everything will be automatically tested to the extent possible, including like the mobile clients and the websites and the IBC functionality and so on and so forth. And then that's obviously going to take some time to do. But if we can accomplish that, then obviously we will gain a huge productivity boost, because then rather than our devs currently maybe spending a day or two on manual testing of a few lines of code, they can write a few lines of code, let some automated servers do the testing for them, and then go and write some other code. And then when, one set of tests are done, they can look at the result, and if everything is okay, they can complete that and move on and continue writing more code, because that's really what you want for developers. You want them to be writing code all the time. You don't really want them bogged down with testing, and the test requirement in blockchains are quite significant.
Right. So to automate it would speed up the process, and that'd be awesome. Okay. Provision AWS access and permissions.
Yeah, so this is just some cloud engineering stuff of wiring together our Office 365 logins with our AWS cloud subscription, so we can sort of use single sign-on across the Azure and AWS clouds. And then we're going to use AWS for a lot of the sort of infrastructure in terms of DNS or load balancing or just VMs or whatever. And then, that's sort of what this task is all about. And these resources sort of are required for us to do the automated testing, right? Because for us to, for instance, automate the testing across all mobile devices of, say, Terra Station, we would need to run a number of virtual servers that would all emulate various mobile phones while running a test suite, and then they would emulate the next phone and so on and so forth. And there's like 60 plus mobile devices that you typically target, so that takes up a lot of compute power, and this is really what this is all about, is sort of preparing our setup for that.
All right. The next thing on the list, am I right, is this new today? Because I don't remember this yesterday.
Yeah, so we found out during testing of the layer 2 components that there was still a dependency on Terra.js in Station, even though we're largely moving to Feather.js. And that meant that in order for us to support the 2 new proposal types in the treasury module for the add and remove address to exemption list, we had to basically spend the better part of yesterday and today figuring out where to implement the code in Terra.js and Terra Proto, and then prepare the changes and prepare the different branches and open pull requests to TFL so we can get those updates out before the 28th. Otherwise, people will not be able to use the new proposal types, which is not maybe a big deal for the release itself, since the Binance whitelist addresses are already part of the upgrade handler, which means that they get added automatically when the upgrade process takes place. But for future use, if we want to add other addresses, obviously these proposal types need to be supported. So this is an ad hoc urgent issue that we opened up and started working on.
Okay. So, all right. So we've gone from the stuff that's from the dugout to on deck to up at bat. And before we go to actually getting on base, let me just look at the chat real quick. And, you know, as I expected, because this is just a huge topic right now. There are just a ton of questions around this SEC lawsuit thing, and they're just going to be really tough to answer. And I kind of have to defer to what LuncBurnArmy kind of already said. In that, until we get some clarification on some things, it's going to be tough to answer these questions. Let's see, what else do we have? I know it's not really a L1 issue, but Station Wallet doesn't allow for us to see NFT collections. Have you heard if that will be added in the future? Any idea?
No clue.
Yeah. As you said, it's not really an L1 thing. And Fire King, thanks for being here. That's my mod.
I mean, if I can add one thing to it, right?
Sure.
I think people should follow the example that Matt said, right? If you have a good idea and you think people need something, go on Agora, make a proposal. If it passes, eventually we're gonna get around to it, because at some point we're gonna, be done upgrading the platform, and then we're going to be looking at other work items, and we will most definitely prioritize things that have passed governance.
Right. Actually, Ivan had a little answer for him. He said that he spoke with Jared a little over a week ago. Jared is aware of the issue and they are working on it. He would assume it's a big, not immediate fix. So, okay. Thank you, Ivan. All right. So on base stuff in review. And a lot of things have moved around since yesterday, because obviously these guys are working every day. And we have at the top of the list this merging upstream changes from TFL. And it's, basically just what it says, right?
Yeah, so it's basically part of preparing the Oracle feeder for this dynamic prefix solution that they implemented for the interchain station stuff. And then changing out old NPM packages with new NPM packages. So that brings us to sort of parity with the Oracle feeder from TFL. And then we're sort of done with that repo, and we can say now our main branch is sort of fixed with the different, security upgrades and whatnot that we want to have in there.
Right. And I don't think this can be really explained enough, because I still find that people are a little confused on it. Whenever we use the word parity, we've kind of said it before, but some people might not have heard it. You can't get absolute and total parity where it's just like a copy paste thing from Luna over to Terra Classic, because of the burn tax. There's always going to be some adjustments that need to be made to contracts before anybody can move over.
That's correct. And I mean, the thing to remember though is that there's far less that will need to be done. And I mean, there's pros and cons to everything, right? And I was talking a little bit with Brian about this earlier. Binance is burning what they're burning. We've got a little 0.2% tax. There's going to be a migration component anyways when we do the CosmWasm upgrade. So once we're done that upgrade, the level of change that people will need to do to their contracts will be far less than what it would have been prior. So but yeah, if you wanted just a strict like copy paste, the burn tax is the element that does require some cost customization right now. So I mean, it's as close to parity as you can humanly get, I would suggest.
Right. All right. Yeah. Thanks for that. Yeah, Zaradar said the same thing yesterday, that it's not like a huge deal. It's just something that people need to be aware of. All right, Zaradar, I wanted you to, if you don't mind, I wanted you to kind of talk about this one again, because I didn't know who this Yunsuk Yu or whatever, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, was, but this seemed to be someone who you really admired. If you want to talk about that a little bit, that'd be awesome.
Well, I mean, I've never actually spoken with the guy, but as a guy who've been working a few years with Go development, and for what, like a year almost with Cosmos, maybe a bit less, it's apparent to me that this guy is a significant, force of nature almost in terms of the quality of work that he produces and the ideas that he produces in the ecosystem. So, I mean, he basically built the customized priority system that we have in Tendermint for our blockchain. Before there was an actual priority system in Tendermint, and he did it in such a way that made it very easy for us to layer his work on top of the newer versions of Tendermint, which typically, to me is a sign of good craftsmanship, right? I mean, you're also a construction dude. The difference between shoddy masonry and real good masonry work. And in this guy, he's no doubt an artist when it comes to writing blockchain code. Cool.
All right, good. Last question that is in the, and guys, feel free to put your questions in here and I'll kind of pop in and out of them. Someone asked, has anybody put any more thought into replenishing the Oracle pool?
Yeah, so that's something we've been talking about. I think that's going to be a Q2 scope piece that is looked at. And Trev, you're gathering feedback from the community, so I know that you've been asked that a few times as well. Yep. So I expect that that's going to be something, like I said, that we start to talk about more, because it is something that we still got time, right? But we do need to start looking at possible solutions. So I think that research will need to be done, and yeah, I think that's likely. I'm suspecting that's going to be something that the COC suggests to us to take a look at. Yeah,
most likely. All right, moving down, the burn wallet for Binance. We pretty much already talked about this.
The only reason why it's still there is just to explain shortly our review process, right? We tend to have a peer review process where we kind of want to achieve consensus. And right now, because Ed has been busy today, we haven't had time to achieve consensus with him yet, right? So it's simply just in review because we want to have this thorough consensus between the developers, so we all agree on the changes in the system and how the behavior is supposed to work.
Right. And anybody that actually comes here, if you click on any of these things, you can get a little deeper into it, and you can see where there's a space for everybody to basically sign off on it. And once everyone's signed off on it, then not until then will it move to the done column. All right. So minimal initial deposit recreated using main as base branch.
Yeah, so again, this is part of the effort that Frag did on the min initial deposit functionality. And because he did the work while Man was cleaning up our core repository, he sort of had to relayer his work onto the new main. So this is basically just him copying over the stuff he did and then making sure that it works with the new sort of baseline, so he can merge that into main without breaking or creating breaking changes in the system.
Okay. All right. And the next one down is signature verification failed. Please verify. This is just a question. These two here are questions that came up, right? But you had something to say about these yesterday.
Well, I mean, they're mainly a good example of some of the stuff we also have to handle on the side, right? So they were initially reported to us and treated as bugs because we didn't know what was going on. And we take, all the input we get seriously, especially from other developers like Dan, the architect. So we did some initial reviews, and then we sort of determined that maybe he was testing the Rebel 1 network, which is not really being maintained anymore, which might be the reason for his problems. So we sort of swapped it to an L2 support ticket / question and marked it as out of scope. And now we're basically provided some answers to him, and we're waiting for him to complete the issue, because we obviously want to make sure that people who take the time to make us aware of potential problems or whatnot are heard and answered and feel satisfied that they got an appropriate answer to their question.
Okay. All right, so that's 114, 116. All right, and the last one is deploy new Oracle with SHA 256 key to all validators. And we had talked about how we're currently still on SHA 1, which is very, very outdated. So it's just a matter of updating this thing, to...
Yeah, we have a lot of quality of life upgrades, and this is part of one of the security upgrades that we're doing a lot of, along with some other packages, like an Axios package. So we use something called SATS tooling, which is security analysis something. I don't even know what the abbreviation means, but I use these tools quite often in my development process because we have so many third-party dependencies. And one of the biggest attack vectors for hackers today are packages. It's not really trying to breach your firewall or hack your computer. It's just distributing a malware package that will act like a remote access Trojan, and like, the Trojan horse in the Battle of Troy, and thus defeat your firewall without them even having to try to get through it. So basically, we're just preparing to do this upgrade, and that's part of our day-to-day work. We also did a ton of security patches in the Terra D 1.10 client around various SDKs like AVS and some XHTTP library stuff and IBC Go and so on and so forth. So this is all part of the modern development process, because, the fact of the matter is that the internet has been in a state of cyber warfare since 2014, right? So as developers, we're now at the point where we need to use a lot of extra time and effort in order to secure our software.
Okay. And then that brings us to the last column. Before I go to that, I do see that there are a couple questions. Rect Crypto says, how about quick unstake feature where you avoid the lockup but pay 5% tax, half gets burned, half goes to Oracle pool?
I don't think that's a bad idea. I'm sure some people would pay the 5% hit, but like I said before, I think this is something that you should sort of try to run through Agora. Because at the end of the day, we're a consensus-driven democracy. So I can tell him that I think it's the best idea in the world, but that's not really gonna make it a reality until he gains consensus around it.
Right.
So
I end up telling a lot of people the same thing. And I understand probably not everybody feels like they know how to write a proposal for Agora, but I certainly didn't know how to write a proposal for Agora. I read a bunch of them. I kind of looked at the format. I had, some ideas, and I've written a couple of them, and they were probably written all wrong, right? But the idea is basically to get the idea on there and let the community talk about it, because very often I get these suggestions, these ideas, and I want to encourage the community to, take part in the process, right? Put it in writing. A lot of people, if you can put it in writing in my chat or in my comment section as articulately as you do, you can probably put it into writing and then just put it on Agora and, talk about it with everybody. I think that's the best way to go.
Yeah, and we've actually started a process internally in the team. It's still very young days, so it's still not fully sort of operational, but basically around trying to write our proposals and publish them on GitHub, right? And we actually have a template for writing proposals that people can use. I'll just put the link in the chat, then maybe you can bring it up on screen so I can just talk you through it real quick, because that might at least give people a baseline, because then they just have to sort of fill in the paragraphs, right? And that sometimes might be easier. So the idea here with the proposal is basic, that you want to provide some sort of introduction, right? So you want to give a high level explanation of what the purpose of your proposal is. And then you want to sort of try to think about breaking it down into smaller bits, right? So like an idea of being able to have a quick unstaking option might have different moving parts. So maybe you can break it into what we call amendments. So they're kind of like, small legal whatever laws that get voted in. And then you want to specify whatever amount of amendments that you feel, fully explains what changes you want to have take place. Either it's updating Terra D or upgrading the Oracle or changing a setting or whatnot. And then you want to specify some acceptance criteria, right? What are the defined expected outcomes of the proposal? And then lastly, you might provide some testing results. This might be around if you're doing complex changes to the market making module, right? Maybe you want to provide some explanatory math and some back testing results to sort of prove the changes work or whatever. And then lastly, you do like a, executive summary style summary, and then a binary explanation of what happens if it's a yes vote and what happens if it's a no vote. And we try to produce those. So if you can go up to the root of the documents repo real quick. So just click on documents and then go to proposals. Then you can see a bunch of the draft proposals that Ed then took and then rewrote into the Agora format, right? But that gives people also a baseline. So if you try to open up the, the anti-hander burn tax split or something like that, right? Then you can see there's an example of how this is actually written out, which then again, I hope might be able to give people at least a certain baseline to work from.
That's awesome, a template. Yeah, maybe that would encourage some people to actually take it on. I mean, even if you pull up this template and just play with it, you know what I mean? And write it and see how it looks or whatever. That's a really, really cool thing. I didn't know that you had been working on that. So awesome. I will try to link this at some point in the description for people who want to find it and check it out.
I mean, our long-term goal with this is actually to automate the Agora process. So when we publish a document to this repository, it will automatically be submitted to Agora, but I need to look at Agora and see what our integration options are to figure that out first. Okay. But that would make it much easier for us, because then we just write the proposal, push it to GitHub, and then GitHub takes care of the rest for us.
All right. Awesome. That's awesome. Thank you. Okay. Gokupala, sorry if I pronounce that wrong, says, is there any funding for the L1TF outside of the community pool? I'll let you answer that in a second, but I can tell you that I know like Lump Development Fund, I believe takes a portion, I forget what portion, maybe 50%, I don't know, of their commissions and donates it to the L1 task force. Is there anything else that you guys are aware of?
I mean, funding is really the purview of the TGF. We just kind of work here, Trev.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, we're aware of stuff, but it's not something we can really talk on.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And Ivan says, I have one more. You probably meant, is there any chance or thoughts to giving us our own wallet to separate us from any potential issues? And if so, what would the community need to do to move forward?
So, I mean, that goes back to that whole assessment that we were talking about earlier.
Yep.
I think that kind of needs to be done. And the reality is that I think the short answer to that is, of course, there's a wallet is just a view into the blockchain, right? So your coins and funds are on the blockchain, and the wallet is an interface that you can view what and interact with it. So it can be done. It's just a question of the best way, and like I said, I think that a level of assessment needs to be done first, and then once we get that completed, then we can make some informed decisions, right? We want to make informed, evidence-based decisions, and I think that's kind of what we're looking for. The other thing to mention is our scope of work is pretty full for Q1 as it stands right now in any case. So I think it would likely, depending on any feedback we get, I mean, it's not something that we would necessarily do overnight, but I think it's doable for sure. It's just a question of when, and that has to be determined still.
Okay. I wanted to go to this question from V-Man because he says it is coming in on 1:30 a.m. in his part of the world. So he says, all things considered, would there be a call to action on Ziggy without opening ourselves up to any potential legal liabilities? It's just going to be, question after question kind of about this.
I mean, I think Tobias answered that really well.
To provide just to reiterate that real quick, there was never a fast way to implement Ziggy or re-enable what we call the V2 algo. Everybody ranging from Alex to Fafi to myself to whomever, agree that this has to be a slow, academic, well-measured process, because this is one of these times where we don't get a do-over if we fuck it up, right? And Duncan was totally committed to that, and this is why I was a bit sad to see he got so frustrated today, and I actually had to try to chat with him a bit in private, because I mean, we need to do the research regardless of what the SEC says and does if we want to do this, and we have to commit to the idea that this is going to take a long time. So the more we ask, when is it done? I mean, I remember from the early Terra Rebels days, Ed and Radar and myself, constantly trying to answer all the questions, and it was the same questions over and over again. It just gets tedious at some point, right? People have to just accept that certain things are going to take a long time, but they are very much, in focus. We just need to do it in the right way. Right.
Gotcha. Yeah, Duncan was a little beside himself yesterday in that Twitter space, but a lot of people kind of were for a little while there. All right, let's get through this. So let's move into the home run section, and these are the things that are done, and we can just kind of zip through this, and you can tell me whatever things you want to tell me about them. Build, depths, bump, Golang, or
yeah. So that's another security dependency upgrade, and then we have one of the proposals you just saw that was some docs that were upgraded. Then we added in some support for something called Code QLCI, which is another security scanning tool and package scanning tool. And then we added the burn tax exemption feature and updated some SDK stuff around some protobuf, and a lot of these features have basically been sitting on ice and just awaiting finishing the review process from the last sprint. And then Ed and we found a bug in the 110 RC candidate, which I fixed in the early morning. And then Frag and we fixed the IBC Go upgrade testing. And Einan Man, he updated Terra Proto in like lightning speed time for the Terra station work that we had to do. So all in all, it's been a very productive start to this new sprint.
Yeah. So if you notice, it's a lot of, there's 9 done items already, and it's only Tuesday, right? But
Yeah.
these guys worked, just to reiterate it, these guys, some of these guys worked right through the weekend, and it bears repeating that the full-time guys that should be working 40 hours are working, they're putting in 10-hour days, they're working weekends, they're doing way more than that. And even the part-time guys who should be doing 20 hours, 5 days a week, 4 hours a day, they're working close to regular full-time hours. Everybody's kind of working around the clock and going above and beyond the call of duty and what is even really expected or required to get this stuff done. So when you come into the second day of a sprint, of a 2-week sprint, and you have already 9 things done, you know that these guys are busting their ass. And so I appreciate that.
Technically, we have 10 things done because the abandoned item is just a small refactoring task, because I upgraded Terra.js to fix the changes that we needed for the proposals. But Iron Man, he wanted to use some other namespaces. So he basically wants to change some names in various places.
Okay.
So he's gonna basically just cherry pick my work and then create a new pull request, which will then go through fairly quickly because most of the work have already been done, right? Because that's kind of how we work as developers. We want to fail fast. And then if we get to a point where our branch is like, okay, we want to do some changes, and if we want to change it in this branch, it's going to take a long time. We just close the branch, open a new one, and then we just carry over, or cherry pick, as we say, whatever we wanted from the old branch. So it's kind of like being able to build a house and then find out you forgot the plumbing, and then you can basically make the entire house vanish, install the plumbing, and then recreate the foundation on top of it within a minute, right? Like I had a friend, he used to work in engineering, and he said the oldest joke in engineering was always make sure you do the plumbing. And then he told me a real life history about, a foundation that had been constructed, like a big concrete foundation for like a big house, and they had forgot the plumbing. So they had to basically break up the entire foundation and redo it, which obviously cost a lot of money.
Oh my God. I don't have a baseball analogy for the abandoned. I guess that's a strikeout.
No,
it's a strikeout. It's fine.
It's okay. It's stuff that was looked at, and then it's like, okay, we found a better way of doing it. It doesn't mean that there wasn't value in it. It just means that it got far enough along that it was like, okay, we're gonna alter the way that this is done slightly. So
it's basically like the burn wallet for Binance, right? I mean, we don't really have to write the 300 lines of code if they decide to change their minds in the last minute, because we have part of that code sitting on a branch that was closed somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
This is just the way that, you work when you do high productivity development. You don't really care about failing. You care about failing fast so you can maintain what we call agility, right? We want to take 2 steps forward and 1 step back, and then orient ourselves and do that over and over and over again. That's how you maintain a high velocity software development team.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say, guys, I've got to drop off now. But thanks, Trev, for hosting this. I think this was really fun to review, and I hope that it provides some value and some insight into the L1 team's process. I mean, we look at this list every day and refine it, and go through it and work on getting things from, like you said, on base to being a home run, from at bat to being a home run. So we're always working on this, and it's good to share the progress and, answer any questions people may have to the best of our ability. I think, it's always fun to do this. So I look forward to the next time we get this chance.
Yeah. All right. No, if you want to abandon us, go right ahead. I mean,
I have to. So earlier I had to feed
young
the
people
kids,
these
and
days,
now I
they
have to go
no
and buy. I need to go buy my son some soccer cleats because he has soccer tomorrow, and I'm getting the gears that I need to go do that. And then after I'm done that, I'm back at work on the blockchain. I've got to go through and I constantly look at all the issues and make sure that they're all up to date and people are labeling them correctly, and that they've created an issue, and then, you know, I have to say, hey, Trev, you know, make sure you fill in your specifications, or, you know, whatever. And hey, is this item that's in review, is it done yet? Why aren't you done yet? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
I actually really don't. That's actually a really great thing I don't have to do a lot of. So it's just been a pleasure and a lot of fun working with this group of guys. So you know, and as well as yourself, you know, I really appreciate what you guys do, bringing the information to the community. So
Yeah.
thanks again. And
thank you for joining us,
Have a
my
great
friends.
evening.
Go buy your cleats and eat your McDonald's, and have a great night.
yeah, I will for sure. I will. Thanks. Take care, guys.
All
Take
right.
care, buddy. I hope he already ate his McDonald's.
Your cold McDonald's is the worst.
I actually used to work at a McDonald's when I
So
went
did
to
I
high
think that was
school,
my first
right?
job.
Yeah, my first job as well. And I had
Yeah.
like, they had a standing rule. If the food had been sitting, you know, in the heating thing for more than 20 minutes, it had to go.
Yeah.
And do you remember the stench when you had to clean out the garbage room?
The
I mean, it
garbage room,
literally
the trap, the trap, what we
it was
call the
like-
trap. Oh my goodness. That wasn't
I
the only
I
restaurant I
stopped
worked in.
eating McDonald's after I worked there. Literally, I was like, no more.
I stopped, and this is horrible for, listen, anybody who's listening who likes to eat McDonald's, you might want to mute this right now,
Yeah.
right? But yeah, I stopped eating McDonald's for a long time after I worked there too, because I knew the things that we did to people's food. We were young, we were kids, we were assholes, and if somebody sent something back because you know, it wasn't done right or whatever, you know, I might have to sneeze. I mean, it was really, really horrible, but we were young, we were kids. And because I knew the shit that we did, I wouldn't meet at McDonald's because I assumed that everybody was doing that, you know? I'll tell you a really quick story, right? We've got this pizza place in town, and I used to work there when I was young as well. So they make everything, you know, kind of themselves, right? We had this big garbage barrel. It wasn't ever used for garbage barrel. It was only used for sauce. And we would open up these big jugs of sauce, pour the sauce into the garbage barrel, and then we'd add all the spices. There was a whole recipe for it, right? You had this big wooden paddle, and you would stir it and make sure that you get everything all mixed up good. But down the bottom of the garbage barrel was kind of a little trough all the way around it, and you couldn't get the paddle in there. So what you had to do is you had to roll up your arm like this and stick your arm in up to your armpit hair, and then when you were done, you would go like this and into the barrel, right? Yeah. And you know, you would think that I would never eat that pizza, but that pizza was so freaking good, I still go there and eat that pizza.
Yeah, well, what's a little armpit hair, right?
I mean, between friends, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, all right. I'm sorry. I'm off on a crazy rant. All right. Back to, hopefully you got, you know, let me know, you know, you get tired, your back's not hurting, you want to jet, that's fine. But if not, I'm just going to go over to a couple questions that seem to have come up.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
Okay. What expectations do you have for repeg, and how effective do you feel it can be moving forward?
Well, I have expectations that if we produce utility in the network, then eventually the system will repeg itself. I see a lot of good activities going on, so I'm fairly confident to the point where I'm investing my own money into buying long, you know. So I guess that is the ultimate vote of confidence if it's my own investment strategy.
Yeah.
I don't think this is something that's going to happen in 3 or 6 months. We might see a few wild spikes now and again, but for me, this is a 10-year thing.
Okay. All right. And Satama Dog says, Tobias, I want to hear your vision for the future of Lunk, please. And actually, I was going to ask you to kind of reiterate something that we talked about yesterday too, because I talked to you about a 3-year, 5-year, 10-year plan, and you were talking to me about kind of a 2-year plan. So your vision for the future of Lunk.
Well, I mean, I'm a bit tired now, so I'm going to be brief, but
Sure.
overall, the reason why I invested in Terra was because of the market making system, right? So Cosmos chains are basically what you call application specific blockchains. That means that they are, blockchains that are meant to maintain a specific type of application. They're not necessarily meant to be maintain many different types of applications because that inherently makes them slow and cumbersome to deal with. And our sort of future vision is basically fixing the market maker algorithm and ensuring that we have a layer one DEX system that can support layer two DEXs and other DEXs and whatnot. So we can get to a point where we have sufficient safeguards and ABS keepers and partition pools and whatnot to basically re-enable the system and work towards a reality where we maybe start talking more about commodity tokens and sound money and low volatility and stuff like that, because that's really what we want at the end of the day. If we do all of that, I think USDC will eventually repeg itself to more than $1, as I've said before. And I think Long will, slowly over maybe, I don't know, 3 to 5 year window, inch its way up towards maybe 1 cent or half a cent or something like that.
Okay. All right. So, I mean, nobody can tell the future, but for everybody who's always, the when crowd, that's Zaradar's best guess, educated guess.
And it's not financial advice, just to make
At all, not from him, not from me, not from everybody. That's already in the disclaimer in the description. Like I said, none of us can actually tell the future. Black Show, I'm not sure exactly what he's talking about. He says Station Mobile Wallet made 3 transactions from 3 different wallets to Trust Wallet. I intentionally left a small amount of Lunk in Station wallets, but it emptied wallets completely. I'm not sure what he's getting at.
It sounds like he's experiencing some sort of glitch or something.
Yeah.
I would suggest that he tries to create an issue on the appropriate repository. So if he's using the mobile client, then he should probably create an issue with the Terra Money or TFL. And if he doesn't have any luck there, then he can create an issue on our core repo, and then eventually we'll look at it and see if there's anything to it. But I think right now, as I mentioned before, the mobile clients are drifting a bit because they take more time to upgrade and it's a different code base and so on. So most likely people are going to have to contend with Terra Station and the desktop client for a while if they want full feature support.
Okay. Josh G, we've kind of talked about the SEC a bit and talked about how different steps that need to be taken before we can really answer any of those questions. So I don't mean to just blow by your question, but anything regarding the SEC right now, you guys can go back if you got it here late and kind of rehash that because it's definitely not something we can just talk about kind of all night long. There's not a lot of answers that we can give right now. Ivan says, thank you for the hard work, guys. Keep doing the right thing, gentlemen. Appreciate that. Colin says prop 11322 to raise validator minimum commission rates to 5% passed 9 days ago, and there are still 43 out of 130 or 33% of the active set of Lunk validators that are below 5%. What will happen if not updated?
Right now, nothing. I mean, it's a text proposal.
That was a text proposal. It wasn't a,
so it's not really going to change anything until we implement the minimum initial deposit feature. But the problem is that even when we implement that, we can't force them to change their commission. We can only make it so that the next time they change their commission, it has to be above the minimum. So at the end of the day, there's not really a lot we can do to enforce that. This is more for the validators to sort of hash out and ensure that people follow consensus around. But that's just how it is.
All right, so I just want to kind of say that again, because I'll be honest, I wasn't really aware of that kind of caveat. So even if now this was a text proposal, and that's why nothing's changed, because it doesn't really have to. But should that become a parameter change in something that you do, they don't immediately, anybody that's at 0 or 3% or whatever, they don't immediately have to raise to 5% if that's what the prop says. It's just that if they ever do change it, that's what they have to change it at. But if they never change it, they could stay right where they are forever.
Yeah, that's basically it. And I mean,
Okay.
Frag has already written all of the code that we need to implement the feature.
Okay.
But the only thing we can do is release it as part of V2, which we're doing. And then encourage the validators to change the commission.
Okay. Machinery says, sorry, I joined late. How can we protect us developers working in L1 team from SEC? It's another SEC thing, and I'll just kind of defer to the same answer I gave the last person on that. I think we need legal insurance worldwide. I mean, maybe. Ivan says Trev is slacking. You're absolutely right. I usually am. Stop fighting McDonald's. All right. And I'm gonna go through a couple more of these, and then I'm gonna let Zaradar go take some Midol or something for his back. He got his ass kicked today in Kung Fu, and that's what can we do? All right. So I am very proud of the L1 task force. You have been men of character, which impressed me the most. Thank you to the group as a whole for staying together. That's awesome thing to say.
Yeah,
Kenneth.
definitely.
Yeah, that's
and to be quite honest, it's statements like that that makes it worth the effort.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I have no illusions that I'm gonna become a millionaire off my long back, to be honest. I wanted to fix a problem, and now we got to a point where we are being paid to work full time on fixing that problem. And when people, say stuff like that, then the extra hours, they sort of just drift away and it all becomes worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's awesome. We need more of that. Appreciate it. George says Vegas is advocating for a burn tax increase. No surprise there. What is the L1 team's take on that? Do you want to speak to the L1 team or to your take on it?
Well, I mean, the stated opinion of the devs around the burn tax have always been that it's not really gonna accomplish what most people think it will. We had to implement the burn tax as a compromise with the active validator set to get staking and delegation enabled. That's why it's there. We advised against it. Other people wanted it. Consensus won out, and now we have a burn tax. I think in general, as I've also said before, a tax is not a bad thing. If you look at the old Greek city-states, taxes was something that people celebrated because you paid to the defense of Sparta or Athens, or the maintenance of roads or whatever. We've just, as a society, come to a point where the nation states that we know have become totally fragmented, so we don't have this same national identity as we might have had like 50 years ago. And that obviously means that now everybody loathes taxes, right? Nobody wants to pay them. But I think the main concern here is you can't have a system where you change the tax code every month. There's a reason why governments only change the tax laws once a year, right? Because otherwise the system would become volatile, it would become unpredictable. Small businesses would fail because they wouldn't be able to react in time and so on. So I think the main concern here is that it shouldn't change too much. And I mean, if you ask me, it should probably just go away, because that is the road to full parity at the end of the day. But in the fact that we lack utility, I think we kind of need it as a rallying banner for a while still. And hopefully we can get to a point where we can use some of the other tax levers to generate Oracle and community rewards, and then we can do away with the burn tax, so we can become equal to all the other Cosmos chains that doesn't have the burn tax. Because the thing is that whenever somebody writes a smart contract and they use IBC, if that smart contract interacts on another chain, then they have to also take the burn tax into account, which means it creates a lot of obstacles for adoption and growth in terms of network effect.
Okay. Guys, there's there's been consistently like 60 something viewers in here, 43 likes. If we could get that to 50, I would really appreciate it. All right.
You should offer them prizes, Trev. That's why you're not getting those 50 likes.
Free trip to spend the weekend at Zaradar's house. V-Man, apparently people know how to call you already, so.
Yeah, who, me? Yeah, I have people calling me from Turkey all the time.
Yeah. All right. A+ performance by the L1 JTF. Keep up the great work, DJT. And thanks for hosting the panel of distinguished guests. My absolute pleasure. Faluna basically echoes what you said. I don't think any of the devs have ever been pro burn tax since we started. Faluna asked me earlier, Z, to ask you why you have her blocked. She said she loves you and she just wants to basically lavish you with praise.
Well, I just blocked her because I needed to tune out the whole Jacob noise for a while to focus on our work, right? So I will unblock you again, Faluna. Sorry for that.
I told her and Luna Lover 69. I told them both you're probably blocked because you're both pains in the ass. That's why. But
no, mainly it's because, to be honest, I actually randomly follow people in the community on Twitter because I use Twitter as a way to gauge community consensus. But the problem is that sometimes when we get into these very religious arguments about inherently people's prides, be that my own or Jacob's or whatnot, you know, sometimes it just becomes too much and, you know, it affects your mentality and your mood. So I just sometimes turn certain channels off simply just to censor my own thought process so I can focus on my work.
Speaking of Twitter consensus, I had maybe over a week ago put up a poll talking to the community and asking everyone on Twitter how they felt about this current L1 task force moving into Q2. And it was just kind of a fun thing for me. And overwhelmingly, it was 80% or so said, absolutely, we want that. There was a small percentage that said no, as is always going to be, but there was a percentage like 13 something percent, because one of the options was depends on the plan and the cost. And when we talked about that, you were concerned about that 13%.
Well, I mean, I think that, you know, when I left Terra Rebels after the whole Terra Station, Rebel Station, whatever, debacle, I set out to sort of try to show the community that you could create this transparent professional software delivery process that I'm used to from my, you know, normal line of work. And for me, this is sort of, you know, very much trying to do that and basically, you know, show people that we can deliver on schedule and on price and do it in a way that works, maybe in a way that can also be replicated. Yeah. Sorry if that was a bit of a messy answer, but I'm getting a bit tired right now.
Yeah, all right, and we're going to wrap it up. Guys, you jumped past and got me to 54 likes, and I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. So let me just read two more of these, and then we'll be on our way. Geo says, hey, Trev, could you tell Zaradar that he is amazing? I have a feeling he already knows that, Geo, but thank you for saying it, because we tell him all the time. And George says, I appreciate the answer. Thank you for being reasonable with good arguments. The reason for and reason to your responses. This will help in the upcoming Agora battle that I expect soon. Mr. P has the last word, and he says, no clue why Jacob or Notional would block someone as lovely as LLL69. Me either. I couldn't tell you why. All right, everybody, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. I appreciate the likes. I appreciate the questions. I appreciate for keeping everything civil in my chat all the time. I really do. Just, you know, I'm amazed by the people who support me. Thank you so much, Tobias, for doing this again. I mean, this was extremely gracious after the amount of time that we spent yesterday, and especially doing it this late and you know, after everything that you kind of went through health-wise today with your back and such. So
No problem, buddy.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
I think it's important that we do these things, right? Because it provides the level of transparency that we need.
You know, there was a LBA said a while back that he really wanted to reach out to a lot of the other YouTube guys and whatever, and start doing some interviews with everybody. And he actually asked me to reach out to some people, so I did. I reached out to, you know, kind of everybody I knew, and told them, listen, get a hold of LBA because he wants to do some interviews. But I haven't seen a lot of interviews, and I wonder, I should have asked him. I wonder if he just hasn't had the time, or if nobody reached out to him. Because
I just don't think we're that exciting right now. I mean, our price action is not that big, so it's hard for the influencers to generate hits, I think. So they're probably doing other stuff. I think whenever price action starts moving in one way or the other, they'll probably come in and pick up on that. So it's probably more of a priority thing from their perspective.
Yeah, and I'm one of the guys out there that don't really give a shit about the hits. I'm just basically just trying to get some information out. So you could be right about that. All right, sir. Have a great night. I will talk to you soon. I hope you get a lot of rest and you're feeling better.
I will. Take care.
All right, brother. Bye.
Ciao.